Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IRSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Ueyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Thursday, May 1st. We have a mailbag show today. Open up the mailbag. Got some very good questions from Irish Sports Daily customers. Very excited to get into that. I think it's our first one since it's first one in a while. I think we might have done one like right in between spring and in the playoff games, but we've got another one for you today. It's going to be a very fun show. And it might go a little bit long because the mailbag shows usually do that, but that's okay. It'll be a fun time. So thank you everyone for tuning in today. If you like what you hear, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so whenever it is we are going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. You've seen ESQ on all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches. With over a decade making the best custom clothing available, ESQ will help you look and feel your best in 2025. From a perfect fitting suit or sport coat, shirt or bomber jacket, or with a perfect tuxedo for wedding season, check out Ge's amazing work at esqclothing.com. Book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention ISD, get 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. Isaac K is in the chat. He says Penn State fans are already making outrageous claims on the old Twitter machine. I have seen that obviously it's mock draft season and Drew Aller is going high again. It's so weird. Like he can't play poorly enough in big games for people to just kind of be like, maybe he isn't good. It's strange. How many bad games does he have to have in marquee matchups for him to kind of drop down?
I mean, I think it shows that if you look at like the quarterbacks that are listed in the first round mocks that are way too early first round mocks right now.
Yeah.
It's not a great quarterback year again.
Everyone says it's better though. Everyone's saying I think
it's better, but it's this year was trash. So it's like not even saying anything. Like it's not anything close to and a lot of it is obviously projection because people remember that like 2 years ago, Riley Leonard projected first round pick by some, right? Like that happens to guys because they kind of are always hoping these guys are going to take another step. And to be fair, like Aller took a big step last year. He was way better than he was the year before. I mean, he was really trash in
the year before. He was undraftable.
Yeah, but I think people see the thing is that people see the traits, right? They see like, oh, this guy's got a big arm, he can run. They see a lot of things, and you're like, oh, this guy looks like Josh Allen. And also too, like you look at Josh Allen and you're like, man, this guy can't throw. Everybody always thinks that they're can take and get the best version of that guy, right? Like that's what people think. So I think that's why it ends up being like that. Like I saw something where like Cade Klubnik is was like a projected number 1 pick overall, and he don't get me wrong, he was like significantly better last year, and it helped. He had better talent around him, so he should be pretty good this year. Number 1 pick, good. I mean, I'd like to see more of it against him going against actual good defenses. Like that's the thing. It's like the one thing with Caleb Williams was like this guy was like carving up everybody, which is what made it such a big deal. That it was like, man, he had the worst game ever for him against Notre Dame because no one had made him have a bad game. So like in 2 years, no one had made him have a bad game. So I think it's one of those things where, people, they're always looking for the ceiling of what it's why like Arch is already being thrown, even though Arch is probably not going to leave and he has only started, a few games against crappy teams or whatever. I mean, I think Arch will be good. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm an Arch believer, but like, I do think that it's just everybody's just kind of hoping because they're just desperate for these guys. And the truth is we never know because Bo Nix a few years before was like, man, this guy's like running around, looking reckless, looking stupid,
looking ridiculous. Yeah.
looking ridiculous. That's how people viewed him, as like he was like poor man's Johnny Manziel to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it helped him play in the 6 years, and he absolutely like did well and was like a much different quarterback in his final year in college. And then all of a sudden, he's like good as a rookie in the NFL, right? So
Better than people thought.
yeah. And the truth is, no matter what Mel Kiper tells you, none of us know. None of us really know how these guys are going to do once you get against NFL teams, against NFL defenses, who your coach is, what you're surrounded by. All that kind of stuff matters. And it's like the way that I'm looking at for Notre Dame is, I think like both guys that are competing for the job right now, I mean, they're guys that I think could have a good year and be like in the next year's mock draft, whoever the quarterback could be, they're going to be thrown in there as a name, as a first round pick. But a lot of that will be because they have talent around them that is putting them, is allowing them to succeed.
Yeah, well, CJ Carr especially, he has the name, and he was a highly rated recruit, right? That's kind of the key to the whole thing. I think that something that I want to make it a point, and I think this is for both of us, is looking at the comments after our last show where we ranked the top 25 players and just some of the comments in the chat as well. I think I want to make it my personal goal to teach people why Drake Bowen's a good football player. And part of it is because of what they see on TV. And it's like everyone keeps saying like, oh, he's like bad in coverage. Like he keeps blowing coverages, and like the coverages that you think he's blowing are actually not his assignments. And so like,
yes.
I just like, I need people to understand, like, he's actually good. He's good. All right. Yeah. Like he's not like, I had him sixth, you had him third. Like, and this is college football, right? We're not projecting to the NFL. We're looking at the Notre Dame's football team. He's a good football player. And so it's going to be my mission to educate.
Get a little bit of the JD Bertrand treatment where people were like, all of a sudden just like, this guy sucks and this and whatever. And we're like, no, he's a pretty good football player. Yeah. And also too, I think, Drake is physically a way more of an impressive guy than Bertrand. He's just bigger.
It's weird too, because like he fits the profile of someone that Notre Dame fans should like,
Yeah, for sure. Local Indiana guy who like helped recruit the class, like, top 100 recruit, good athlete, whatever.
Like two-sport athlete.
Two-sport, first year starter, plays well. It's because people see that. It's just people remember. It's like the loud misses. People remember that kind of thing, and that's just what.
But the loud misses are like not his misses. That's the point.
No, I know, but that's what they see that and they think whatever, right? Like it's like one of these things where Riley Leonard throws a pick and they're like, man, God, what a terrible pick. And it turns out you're like, yeah, the receiver ran the wrong route or something. Like, like people don't, context is lost when fans are within a game and they remember that stuff. And they also remember like things. It's also too why I just decided, I was like, man, I'm just not going to highlight. I mean, I'll write about plays that like, hey, this happened, whatever, during a game for like a film don't lie. But I'm not going to point out like, hey, this guy screwed up on a play. One, because sometimes I find out after that, like the call was this and whatever. And like, that wasn't his fault or whatever. But also too, like, that's how people just start jumping on people and just start like piling on to people. And I just would rather not to be like, puppy dogs and ice cream with everything, but I don't want to. I'd rather highlight like good plays that if people want to share that, good, rather than people like just sharing about like, we talked about it before with the what's his face, the Sharp
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Warren Sharp.
yeah,
Yep.
that's all he does is like, what's this guy doing? It's like this guy's never. I mean, I don't want to be one of these guys, but I am going to be one of these guys. This guy's never played ball in his life, and he's going to tell me about some guy blowing an assignment. Get out of here, Warren Sharp.
Yeah, I think it's so I mean, I do my videos and stuff, and I have learned over time. Like, I think part of it is, because people ask questions about plays, like why a play didn't work, and sometimes it's like pretty clear. The problem is like people can't handle it. They can't handle it in a mature way. Like I would like to explain sometimes why something didn't work, or like it was just a simple thing. But then people like they go off and they start going on like attacks on like Twitter. I don't want to be a part of that. Like it's not that I want everything to be like you said, like puppy dogs and rainbows. It's not that. It's just that people can't handle the negative part of it. Like they don't know how to moderate themselves and not be like a just complete jerk. That's the problem. Like so I don't know. Like that's why sometimes I try to keep it to the board too, because it's like at least then it's within our little ISD community, and it doesn't go all crazy. And I will say, like, the ISD board for the most part is pretty good at like taking in information and not like getting ad hominem about it. It's just like, hey, you asked me a question, I told you the answer. But like it's not that this is a bad player, it's just like this was a bad play, right? So that is what it is. All right, let's get to the questions, Shane. All right, first question from Fred P. Yeah, how does Lauren Landau different from other strength and conditioning coaches that Notre Dame has had in the past? Most recently, I mean, we could make a direct comparison to Matt Bayless because he was the S&C guy for for a long time before he came, and he was a big part of their success in 17 onward. How is he different? What does he do different than him and some of the other coaches?
Well, I think we've talked about this before because someone has asked the question before.
Yeah.
So just, not trying to repeat exactly what we said, but I think the big thing is just like it's a much more individualized approach, which I think that's kind of where, in general, strength and conditioning has gone in the direction it has gone over the last probably 10 to 15 years. It's been veering way more towards that, where when it first started, there was just like workouts and it was like, okay, here's the team workouts and everybody's doing the same thing. Then they kind of figured, well, maybe we got to do a little bit different workouts for the linemen than we got to do for, the DBs. And then they decided, okay, like now it's like, well, not every DB is the same. And some guys need to get better at certain things. Some guys need certain things. Some guys need to add weight. Some guys need to lose weight. Some needs to do this. Some needs to get more explosive. Some need to get stronger here. Some guys need a better core, all this kind of stuff, depending on obviously rehab and all that too. And I think with Matt Bayless and just his overall kind of approach in what he's been, and like him being in the industry for a long time, he was much more of like, they had the St. Valentine's Day massacre type of workout, those like kind of break you down, mentally tough workouts that are like for the team. And I'm not saying those are a bad thing, because I think in some ways those are good, but also some of that stuff isn't always good because it's not the best for everybody.
Yeah.
It can help add to guys getting hurt. Obviously, when you've seen some programs, this isn't as common now, but there's still some programs where like guys get go to the hospital because they had to overwork during a workout or something like that. It's like that's why they have those GPS monitors and they have all that kind of stuff to kind of know hey, you can push this guy in this day and you can push this guy here or there. And there's been so much too with just think about it in football terms, just on the field. You wouldn't just say, okay, well, we're going to do, individual. Well, D-line, go work with, do the exact same thing as the DBs. You wouldn't do that, right? So, and just even then, you wouldn't even the defensive tackles when you're doing stuff. That's why they split up with defensive tackles and defensive ends and whatever, because it's different, and they're so much different, and everyone's an individual. There's obviously guys at different age, guys at different levels, and the main thing is just that I think that was one of the reasons why Marcus Freeman went after him, because he wanted someone who could build out programs for guys and take individualized approach to the entire team. And that was like kind of the goal. And I think, for the most part, I think it's been pretty good so far. It's worked out pretty well.
I think too, I think they were just due for a change anyway. Like sometimes you just need a different voice in your system, right? In your program, and it's not a negative on Bayless. It's just like any kind of coach turnover, after a while they leave and new ideas come in, things of that nature. I think it was Matt who pointed out, like, Notre Dame didn't have the foot injuries last year that they had been having. And that was like a big thing. People always love to blame Under Armour for that, myself included. But it was just a fact, right? And it doesn't say they won't pop up. But it hasn't been a thing the last, since Orlando was around. Might be a difference in, what he's doing. I think we can truly judge like how well that's all going when specifically we see the line, guy like Jaden Osbury, the guys on the team who you feel like, hey, they need to make big physical jumps, right? Who are younger now that he's, Lauren Landau's been around the team for over a year now. Like we should start to see some real changes, right? So we can judge that later. But that's some good context from you, Jamie. That's good stuff. XRND 1994. Besides strength and conditioning, what can really be done over the summer? What can be done to help Carr and Minchie perfect the offense in preparation for this season?
I mean, there's a lot that they do, in preparation for the season. Both those guys have their own, private quarterback coaches that they work with. So, and where they do a lot of stuff where you find that those private quarterback coaches, a lot of it today, and I know there was like a lot of the previous stuff with George Whitfield where they're throwing over brooms and all that. And not to say they still don't do some of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of it that is mechanical stuff, like mechanics and working on specific throws and things to kind of build you up, because when they're into actual pads and doing that kind of stuff, you don't have time to put the time into the mechanics as much. Like Gino Gaduli isn't like breaking down mechanics after there's just not enough time in practice to do that every day. So I think it's a lot of it's like tweaking mechanics, doing that kind of stuff. Certainly like working with receivers, throwing with receivers, whether that's like getting guys together and like working on air, whether it's getting together with a big group and doing like 7-on stuff and competing. That stuff happens during the summer. There's a lot of stuff that like goes on there with these guys. And obviously there was the trip that Riley Leonard took last year where they went to, Alabama and brought a bunch of guys down. They all threw. I think it's a little bit different this year because when there's like two guys competing for it, not to say that some guys might not go with like CJ Carr on a trip somewhere or whatever, or like some guys might go with Kenny Minchie, but it's a little bit like maybe you want to do it where like everybody's kind of involved, where it's like you don't want to pick sides or anything like that. Right. So I don't know what is going to happen there, but I imagine there will be people will be like getting together and throwing when they're not on campus, but definitely when they're on campus. I mean, these guys are working that stuff all the time, right? And obviously you don't want to throw out your arm or anything, but they're definitely putting in work.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, right? Like they go from spring to summer, and it's you ask yourself, like, how are they so sharp? How are they so good? Because like they've been working on it all summer. I'll bet you they will all work together. First of all, it's more efficient that way to all be together instead of people flying all over to different houses and different locations and all these other things. Like I assume they'll be together. It's actually a question about where we would go if from Oscar. It's a good question. about the location of it's like a food question. It's barely football related actually. It's just about would you rather be in Nashville or would you rather be in like Ann Arbor kind of thing. But we'll get to that in a second. But there's a lot that they can do. There's no coaches and everything, but the players, they all know the plays. They're in 7-on-7 all the time. They can even do some team stuff if they want, right? Like again, it's not structured with coaches, but like they all know the play, so they can, and they kind of know how a practice is run. They can get in there and do a lot. So there's a lot of work that could be done.
Film stuff too, for sure.
Yeah. This is a really good question. In ranked order, who do you guys think is most important for a successful year for Minchie Carr? So I don't know that this is ranked or whatever, but it's out of coaching, play calling, solid O-line play, running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, a good defense. Like, which one of those do you think is most important? And then we'll kind of get to the rankings and stuff.
I think it's coaching, play calling is at the top. I think that is. And I actually think solid O-line play is right behind it. I think that is something, because obviously protection is the main thing. Everybody is better when you have time to throw and you're not pressured. Like no one grades out better when pressured. And it's not to say some guys aren't good or better, or not better, but like good, but like better than some others under pressure. But it's just clean pockets. You're able to just do a lot more, right? Yeah. And execute a lot better. But I do think like calling stuff and it's all about setting these guys up for success. And it's knowing like, well, these are Minchie strengths. These are Carr's strengths. This is what the defense is giving you. These are the matchups. Because if you're not taking advantage of those matchups, then you're not setting these guys up to succeed, right? And then after that, I would say like, having a good running game to support and all that, I think it is big and all that. But like the play of the, wide receivers and tight ends and backs, and all that kind of stuff, like, catching the ball, like that's huge. That's huge. And a defense helps because obviously you don't want them to be, chasing the whole game. And I think that's one of the things that, when we talk about Caleb Williams again, he always had to chase the whole time. It was like he had to, even if they had a huge lead, it was like, well, if we don't score on every possession, we might lose this game. Like that's a brutal way to live and play, right? But but you can. That's not something that's under anyone's control on the offense, and all you can worry about the offense. So yeah, it would be the last on the list.
I actually would put defense higher. I would put 3 defense for these quarterbacks specifically, and I'll get to it. I'll put 3 defense, 4 wide receivers, and then running backs, tight ends. And the reason I would put defense is like just because of what you just said. Like it was so helpful to Riley Leonard last year that they were always in the lead. They were always in the lead, because we talked a lot about how like they would go through these stretches where it's like they can't get a first down. They go 3 or 4 possessions where it's like, man, they're not getting anything. But the defense is never giving up points. So you're never chasing. Like I always think about, and I think an underrated season for Notre Dame was Everett Golson at quarterback in 2014. Like he was made worse by the fact that his defense was so bad in those last 4 or 5 games where, Brian Kelly said it, like we have to put everything on Everett Golson because we cannot stop teams. And if you have a defense that keeps giving you the ball back, the way you play offense is completely different. And to be honest with you,
field position
and just the way that Mike Denbrock calls the game, the way that everyone feels about offensive possessions. I mean, look at how different the vibe was when NIU was like taking the lead. It went from 7-0 up to 13-7 down. And like every possession after that's like, well, man, if we don't score here, like we're in bad shape. And then they had the thing where it's like they kept having empty possessions like they have all year. And then NIU kept scoring and it just became like this tension in the stadium. Whereas, against I think it was Virginia where it was 7-0 for a long time. And then finally they kind of broke through in the second quarter, and then they kind of blew the game open. But if Virginia was putting points on the board, like I think it would have caused a little bit more panic. And it just, maybe you call games different, maybe the offense reacts different. And now that you have first-time quarterbacks, like being in the lead or not trailing is very important. And I wouldn't be, honestly, the reason I'm thinking this is because my flag team that I'm coaching right now, like I like it a lot better when we're in the lead and not giving up points. Like it's a lot more, it's like stress-free. It's not you're not like we have to get this or else, we're gonna keep falling behind. Like it's just a different kind of feeling you have. So I would put the defense higher.
You know what? You sold me on it, because I actually do think, because I'm thinking about specifically too, if you're thinking about Riley Leonard, and yes, that NIU game is a perfect example, because I think that he was not comfortable enough in the offense. And then also too, like, because of there was the shoulder thing in that game, and whether or not, how much he could run. And there wasn't a confidence in the way that Mike Denbrock called the game, and also the way that Leonard handled that.
Yeah.
And all of them beating the crap out of these teams later on really helped. And I think even if you look at it was very early in the game, but Georgia Tech was up 7-0 on Notre Dame. And not that I certainly didn't feel like, oh, Notre Dame's in trouble or anything like that in that game. But I also felt like Leonard had already kind of crossed over that hump where he didn't, he was going to be fine. Like he wasn't going to be, the pressure wasn't going to get to him there, because he just seemed like much cooler and calm. And then really too, you saw like the way they came out, and it was a ton of like quick game and all that. And Denbrock had like a handle on it, and both of them together, it just went. And then all of a sudden, next two drives, they scored 2 touchdowns, and they're up, and they've trailed the rest of the game. And then same thing with even in Penn State, there wasn't like a panic when they were down, because just from Leonard or Denbrock, because they just was much more confident, but it took time to get there.
Yeah.
So, and especially too for first year quarterbacks, where these guys haven't been in those situations. Yeah. Until you kind of build up that confidence. And I think that was one of the best thing that ever happened to Deshaun Kaiser was him throwing that touchdown to Will Fuller at the end of the Virginia game, because that just like skyrocketed his confidence after that. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't think he believed in himself before that. And then that just changed everything for him.
Yeah. That's a good point on that. Envy Irish, another question. It's the night of January 26, 2026, and Coach Freeman has just accepted the national championship trophy. Outside of Minchie Carr playing great, what else went right for Notre Dame to get them to that point? Conversely, they missed the playoffs. Outside of injuries or quarterback issues, what went wrong? So, obviously the quarterbacks are important. What's going right for Notre Dame to win the title next year?
Well, I think, despite what happened last year with them getting injuries and them making it as far as they did, health, like you got to be healthy enough.
I mean, it meant they didn't win the title. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that, they needed that to win the title. So I'm not saying they would have, but it's pretty important to have your best players available.
Well, and it's also different. There's a difference between guys being injured and out for the year, or guys being like, this guy's out for 4 weeks and then he's going to be back or something like that. Right. And those weren't the kind of injuries that Notre Dame was getting, other than like Billy Schrauth. Right. Like, there weren't those things like that. So I think that health, that does matter, because especially if it's like a really key guy, it can really change the framing of it. And then I think that like, that's a huge thing. I also think too, like, they have to have the exact same mentality they have last year. So where they're playing like they have something to prove every week. And that obviously happened for Notre Dame after the NIU game, and it just kept on going. But it's hard to keep that edge. Like you've even seen like Alabama lose that edge at times and Georgia lose that edge at times. So they have to keep that edge. And I think that's like a huge part of it.
I would say I think the sophomores on defense need to make that leap. Like, I don't know what kind of leap Leonard Moore has to make. I guess he just has to continue. But like KVA, right? Like he needs to be that leap, like a star, right? I think Bryce Young needs to be a star. And I say those guys specifically because they have that star quality, like that star ability.
They have that potential, yeah.
Yeah, like just to be like top of the sport. I would say that. I think Jeremiah Love, like you have to get the most out of him, right? And as good as he was last year, I don't think they got the most out of him. And he has the ability to be the best offensive player in college football next year, because of his explosiveness, because of his versatility, and because, like, he's of his experience, right? He's been in college, he's played in big games before, and he's performed in big games. So I think when you have that kind of guy, you need to extract everything that you can. Like, I think about, Reggie Bush at USC. Like, USC got everything that you could imagine getting out of a player of that caliber. And that was like one of their big superpowers, was like, when we had that guy, we got everything we could out of him. And I think Notre Dame needs to do that, right? Because he is that difference maker, the guy everybody wants, that only you have, and you have to make sure that that is maximized. The other end of the spectrum, if they miss the playoffs, outside of injuries and quarterback problems, like what didn't work? And I'll just tell you, on offense, I think mine is, and this is something I think about kind of a lot, is as a possibility that I don't think people really consider a possibility, is the offensive line doesn't make a market improvement on their pass protection, right? We assume they will because, they're all older and they have all had a year of experience. But like, we don't kind of factor in how good Riley Leonard was at avoiding sacks last year and what that meant for the offense and the team. Like, if they are not markedly improved as a pass blocking team, like, I don't care if it's Carr or Minchie. I mean, they might be both better than Angeli at this, but they might not be even close to what Riley Leonard was at this. And like, that is something that can really mess up getting in negative plays, getting behind the chains on a consistent basis and having drives ruined basically because you're taking a sack. I don't want to say every time, but like, you're getting pressured all the time, and that's ruining drives. That's something that if they were to be like, to miss the playoffs and be just kind of like a average to above average offense, then I think that could be what it is. It's like the offensive line doesn't become a markedly improved pass blocking team.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I will say, I know Raymond Horton here is just like ripping on Anthony Knapp in pass pro. I mean, I don't think he was great. He wasn't good in pass pro last year in terms of like being good because he was a freshman, but I didn't see stuff that I thought, I'm like, man, this guy can't do this, or he's not going to get better. I think he will be better this year. And I think like, there's no reason to believe they won't be better. Especially because when you think about like guys like Billy Schrauth, who he had some big problems, big holes in pass pro previously, and he got significantly better in pass pro, where I think it was like a weakness and it became like a strength for him. So, and that's just also too, if you just look at offensive line play throughout college football, when you have good coaching, and they have good coaching in Joe Rudolph, guys that play young get better. Robert Hainsey, this is a Notre Dame example. Robert Hainsey was a much better player in pass pro as a senior than he was as a freshman. Same, he's better every year. Same thing with Liam Eichenberg got better every year, right? Joe Walt get better. It's what happens, right? And if they don't, then guys get replaced and they move things around. But I don't really think there's any reason to think that they won't be. But I agree. It is a huge key this year because you can't count on those guys to navigate negative plays the same way that Leonard did.
Yeah.
I think that's really, that'd be a lot to ask. Like, or just like be smart enough to know that like throw the ball away as much and all of these kind of things, right? Like, that's stuff that comes over time and it's learned and it's through experience. So, I think that's big. And I would say too, it will be because kind of going back to what you said, and not KVA or Bryce Young, but I'm just guys in general. There's a huge list, and we went over that 1 to 25, list. There's a huge list of guys that are like good players that could be on the verge of going to great, right? And you got to have a certain amount of guys to go to great to be able to do that. And I think they have just so many candidates, which is why I feel confident they will do that. Because even if there's someone that you don't think, like everybody thinks Charles Jagusah is going to be like great this year, right? Like think he's going to be great. But even if he doesn't, he still might be good, but Emil Wagner might become great and whatever. Like there's enough guys around there that like could make that jump. So I think that is important and needs to happen. I think they have enough candidates that it will happen. But if it doesn't, that's why. If they don't make the playoffs, that's why. They didn't have enough guys who just really took a step up with their development. So far, what we've seen with the coaching staff is the guys develop year over year. You see a lot of that. It's been really positive.
Yeah, I think so. The criticism of Knapp is interesting because like what people are thinking of when like Raymond Horton, when he's talking about, weaknesses in his game, right? To me, it's like, it's very, I don't want maybe understandable is the word. Like if you have a guy like him who is going to take 50, 60 reps against a starting caliber defensive end for whoever, right? And he's playing before he should be, he is going to lose reps. And not only that, he's going to lose reps badly. I think of it like if Christian Gray or Carson Hobbs had been full-time starting corners for Notre Dame as freshmen. Clearly they would have made plays, but they also would have gotten absolutely just cooked on some of them, right? Because like you're not Leonard Moore and you're not Ben Morrison, right? But you're like, obviously Christian Gray's a very good player and he plays as a sophomore and he's a better player as a sophomore and more prepared to be a good player as a sophomore than he would have been as a freshman. Like we just don't usually see a guy like Anthony Knapp ever be the full-time guy at left tackle for Notre Dame. Like he played so much better than the baseline case for someone in his position, but we view him as Notre Dame's starting left tackle. And when he has all this tape, he's got some reps that are just like, man, that's an ugly rep, but it's,
you go from Joe Alt to a true freshman.
Yeah. Like it's completely understandable. Right. And so like, I think that we kind of jump to conclusions. Like this is what he can do. This is what he can't do. It's like, well, we don't know actually what he can and can't, like, we don't know what he can't do because it's like, it's too soon. He shouldn't have even played. Like he shouldn't have been involved in that many reps. So it's just kind of one of those things. Like, I'm not here to say like he can't play. The Joe Rudolph seems to think he can play left tackle. That's it. Like I'm not his coach. His coach thinks it. So based on what I saw, I think he can do it. He has to get better, right? So the weaknesses that he showed and the missed reps that he showed last year, he's got to get better. But his coach thinks he can do it. So based on what I saw, I also believe he can do it. So
we also don't know too. Things happen and guys get shuffled during camp, during the season. So I don't think anyone should like. I don't think no one is wrong in having the opinion that I think that Knapp can be better inside. That's fine.
Right.
It's an opinion.
Right.
But I think the whole point is that they should have enough pieces that they'll fit the pieces in the right spots and be fine.
Yeah.
Frankly, because as Raymond Horton said, fine's not good enough. Exactly. They're better than fine. They'll be better than fine. There you go, Raymond Horton.
Yeah. So we'll see, right? We'll see how it turns out. I don't I think you said it right. It's not that he shouldn't play inside or can't play. We could have the same conversation about Jagusa. What's his best position? I don't know, but they're going to play him where they play him. I'm just saying, if they play him at tackle, I think there's reasons to believe that whatever weaknesses he has now, he can improve on those, right? That's how every player gets better. Or, not every player, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's reasonable to expect that they'll get better. Next question, again, from MV Irish. What position is year-over-year continuity coaching most important? So which position group is most important to have a continuous head coach, or continuous position coach year-over-year?
For me, it is actually the offensive line. That I think that is the most important, just because there's always going to be like little tweaks in terms of how coaches like approach things, like just technically, whether it's just like small little footwork things, whether it's like protection calls or things that they're dealing with, like working on combo blocks. There's just different things there that I think continuity and like having the same voice and being able to like work with someone year over year, player who was like a freshman that you worked through all the way through as a senior, man, I think that makes a huge difference. And then after that, I would probably say the defensive line too, to be honest, too, because I think that's where the most development happens, really, is like guys come in, and which is why it's so rare for guys to come in and like really play as a freshman, which is why too, like, what Anthony Knapp did last year, it's pretty amazing. There just isn't a lot of guys that could have done that. And you want to have guys though, like that keep building on that. And I think one of the things that kind of wasn't problem for Notre Dame was they went Jeff Quinn, Harry Hiestand, Joe Rudolph, 3 coaches in 3 years. And they're all good coaches for the most part. I don't think Quinn was nearly as bad as people think. I would definitely put him 3 out of that group, but like, I don't think he did a terrible job or anything. I just think though that one of the reasons that Harry Hiestand was able to have so much success for all those guys over the years is he was there for all there to get those guys from like the ground floor and build them all up. Right. So I think that that is probably the most important, but you might have another answer, but that's what I think.
It also helped him that none of his key guys like really got hurt. That's just a straight up miracle. Let's go to the non-O-line division. Do you think quarterback coach is most important on the non-line division? Just because the line is kind of a separate. I feel like it might be quarterback coach.
I think it is important too. I think it is important. Just because another thing too is like, and it's not even to say like, hey, this is my philosophy, this is how whatever. It's just knowing those guys and knowing exactly like, hey, this is what you need to work on. So like Gino Guidugli knows like Kenny Minchie came in as this. Well, this is what he needs to work on to get to the point where he can be a starter. This is what CJ Carr needs to work on to get to the point he can be a starter. This is what he needs to do to get to the point to be elite. I think that is really important.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Steve C. I was fortunate enough to be in the crowd at Notre Dame Stadium when Mitch Jeter kicked a field goal against Indiana. He was in New Orleans and Miami when he did the same thing. Ups and downs of punter at James Rendell. Kick returns. Jaden Harrison's special teams play was very important last year. If you agree with special teams being important, why do you and Jamie and Mike and Matt routinely ignore how this is developing for the 2025 team? I haven't heard you mention Noah Burnett or James Rendell or any punt return, kick return players. Do you perhaps think differently, that these positions aren't worth talking about? Shots fired at the staff.
It actually,
Sports Daily.
It absolutely has nothing to do with that. It's not worth talking about. We didn't get to see it.
Right.
First of all, with the returners, you get to see nothing in practice.
Yeah.
Like you get to see, hey, Jeremiah loves catching kicks back there. Cool. Against air. They don't run full kickoff return. So that's why you never hear anything about returners. You hear about, hey, this guy did it. And unless you ask specifically about Marty Biaggi, and people ask him, you can go and look at like the articles of like what Biaggi's saying, but also like things that happen where they're at in the spring is also like the guy who's the lead returner in the spring isn't always the lead returner in the fall. So that's kind of why that part of it doesn't get talked about. And same thing with the kicking. Like I think when you see it when there's access to practices and so like in fall, there weren't, there's only like a couple full practices that they gave, but they gave a lot of like the 5 period things. Well, you got to see Jeter kick in those 5 things. So it's talked about more then. And for that one full practice, go read those practice reports. There's a ton of stuff people talk about James Rendell during that time. So, I mean, we didn't see James Rendell punt at all, really, in the spring. Like, or not in any way where you could say, like, man, he's so much better than he was the year before. And even then, too, like, I remember Bryce McPherson, it was like one of those things where it's like, yeah, he's booting the ball great. And you look, he hit the thing of the ceiling of
yeah,
the practice facility. And oh yeah, he's having a great spring. 3 days later, this guy's in the portal. So it's just one of these things we don't know, and you have to really like trust what the kind of coaches are saying about it. I think there is a lot of precedent for someone like Rendell to get better. Guys who come over and that are the Aussie kickers, like generally just like as they get more used to like playing in this environment and doing that specific job, they get better. So I think he will be better. How much better? Who knows? I don't know. I mean, I'm not predicting he's going to be like an elite punter this year or anything. And Noah Burnett, like in the spring game, he badly missed the first 50 something plus yarder. Everything else looked great. That's the only time you really saw him kick. So there's just not a lot of, or he kicked another one time in the scrimmage, but it was like once. That's all we saw. You just can't judge it based off anything. It's not that it's not important at all. Like obviously it's important.
Yeah.
But we only see what we see, and they're definitely not showing us any fakes in any of these practices. So we have no insight on what that is going to be.
Yeah.
And I think we should just know by now, people should trust, like Marty Biaggi's got stuff in his bag.
He's got stuff in his bag that he's thinking up right now.
Yeah.
Right this second. It's hard because it's like kicking, right? It's kind of, to me, it's kind of like going to pick your favorite golfer and going to a practice range session and reporting on it. Like he hit his driver great today. Cool. Like it has to be in a game. Like Noah Burnett, like Mitch Jeter last spring game had a terrible field goal attempt. Just awful. Like one of the ugliest things you've ever seen, right? When he was healthy last year, he was fine. Like Mitch Jeter was one of the, like, I'm very concerned about him, guys, from camp that we were all talking about. He goes and hits 3 field goals in Kyle Field and helps Notre Dame win the game. Like it's hard to talk about, right? Noah Burnett, his stats are what they are. This is what he's done in games. We'll see if he can do it at Notre Dame. Like James Rendell was a star of camp last year, started very slow, and no one really liked him, right? Like first 6-7 games, it just, It's literally just speculation that we're talking about. They don't really even work on special teams that much because they don't know who's going to be on the team. They don't know who's going to be on the position groups, right? Like, what's the point of having a whole bunch of guys on your punt coverage or your kickoff coverage, and then they end up going to the portal and all those reps are wasted? Like, you don't know, So I think we've seen what we've seen from special teams. It's not that we don't think it's important. It's just in the spring, there's not much to talk about. So we don't talk about it.
You know what? Okay. I do want to say one thing, and I could say it now because I guess he left the program. But Kobe, oh man, I can't.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So he had an extremely dumb play that I didn't report on, but I can say it now because he's not with the program. So, like, come on, man. He had a really dumb play that was mentioned about during team where he ran into Steve Angeli's arm when he was throwing. Like, get out of there. You have one job, and it's not to hit the quarterback. And believe me, I'm a former defensive lineman. Yes, of course you want to hit the quarterback. And yes, this guy's a walk-on who's trying to like show everything, put everything out there to try to get any kind of, gain any kind of ground to try to play. I get it. Well, okay, so he did that. Also, in special teams, he like pancaked Leonard Moore on this play where it looked like he got like torn up. And it was just one of those plays where it was like, you just do not do it. If it was a game, heck yeah, do that. Against your own teammate, when like it was a point where it was obvious there was like a little bit of like a vulnerability there, you do not finish that block. And it was just so stupid that I just was like, I mean, I'm not going to just call this guy out for being dumb. He's a walk-on. The guy's trying his hardest out here, whatever. But he's not on the team anymore, so I can mention it now. You don't see a lot, and the only reason I mention it too, because you don't see that kind of stupidity in practice from people, and it was just extremely dumb. And I'm just going to say that if they don't have to worry about the 105 right now, but if they were doing the 105, he wasn't making the 105 because of that kind of play. Those are just dumb plays. Don't do it.
Don't do that.
Sorry,
PSA. No, it's good. PSA. All right. Sloth asks, if you were on the coaching staff, do you think you would be an effective recruiter? And how much of being a good recruiter is your talent, personality versus how much can be learned? Would you be a good recruiter, Jamie?
I mean, I did coach college before, and I can tell you, I didn't like recruiting. I'm not, that's not what I don't enjoy it. And it's not that I don't like, I like talking ball with people, but I don't like, kudos to all these people. Like, I mean, Chad Bowden and Dre Brown, like playing Call of Duty with guys at, midnight or whatever. Hey, you're 30 years old and you're doing that with a high school kid, man, God love you. You're doing that kind of stuff.
God bless.
Great. Right. Hey, go for it. Could never do that. I just couldn't. I'm just not in me to do that. So I would not be an effective recruiter in that way. I'd be the guy who's like, hey, when you get on campus and you get to talk ball, I'd be like, yeah, I think I could do okay there. But I think too, you have to know that that's part of the job and like embrace that part of it, which is why like some of these guys, it's like, I'm not cut out for college. Cause it's like, to have that kind of thing, you have to find your own lane of what exactly, because people know when you're disingenuous. You got to be you, right? Yeah. So maybe I would have found my lane and done it, whatever. But I think a lot of it is your personality, and if you're like super like outgoing and one of these people who really like kind of can connect with anybody and doing all that kind of stuff, great, that's awesome. I think whatever, but I think for people that aren't like that, it's a lot harder, and you can learn, but you can only learn so much.
Yeah, I'd like to think I'd be good because I was a recruiter for like corporate jobs as a young Greg. So there are things that you can learn, like in terms of just like not quite sales. It's more of just like getting people to do like meeting people where they are, I guess. And I think a big skill in that is like finding their pain, right? That's something that you learn a lot is like, what is the pain that you're feeling? What like, so, overcoming objections, right, is a big one where it's like, what, like with Notre Dame specifically, like what is it about Notre Dame that's holding you back? What is it? Let's get into the nitty gritty, because what happens is you can sell a player or recruit a player on XYZ aspect, but that's not what they really care about. You need to find out what it is that they care about and then meet that need going forward. And like there is a talent that comes with that, right? And so it's just like anything else, right? Like you can learn it, but some people who are innately good at just kind of figuring out others, like they'll just naturally be better, right? And you can make that up in other ways by, staying on top of them and showing them that you care and showing them that you're interested and things of that nature, right? But like some people just have a gift for it. We all know, like, hey, that guy, like he's just friends with everyone and he's just very good at getting in and figuring out other people, and other people have like an affinity for them, and that's great.
I think you would be good at it. I think you'd be good at it, Greg.
In some aspects, I'm that way. The other part too is like I'm in education as well, so like I have a bond with young people, right? So that's another part of it where I kind of have that. It's just like the Call of Duty thing, but the Call of Duty thing, like that's obviously not for everyone,
Yeah.
It's
definitely not for me.
I think you can be good and not do that. At least I think maybe you have to. I don't know. It's definitely not my deal, but like again, it's just a matter of like being able to figure out what makes people tick and then kind of pushing them on that specific thing. I'd like to think I'd be good just because I had some training in this. I should. MV Irish says Greg's got the Riz. That's funny. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I did have to I did have to recruit one of my players to my team. It didn't take very much. I just said, hey, would you like to play for us? But there was like a thing where I went over to the house with the parents and stuff, and I was like, hey, like, would she like to play on our flag football team? It was pretty funny. I had an in-home visit, Jim.
Yeah.
Next question from Gilly Fan. Has the fact that Coach Freeman is of Korean African American descent had a significant impact on recruiting? Is there any vibe that families want their son to play at Notre Dame in part because of Coach Marcus Freeman's ethnicity, or just not a factor at all?
I mean, I've never heard anyone say directly that they were like, that it was based on that's why they made the decision of why they chose Notre Dame, but or like why a family likes Marcus Freeman. But I definitely think like there's a lot of people out there. Obviously so many of the kids that they recruit are African American, and you're already asking kids to go to a school that isn't very heavily African American. And it is a big culture shock for a lot of people. And if you don't have like having a head coach that's, half African American, and half Korean, that who's, a mixed race coach, someone who's, obviously can connect with people in that way, that they have guys on the staff that they have more, African American coaches on the staff than I would say than average programs. They also have, even just saying like Mike Martin is also like African American, like having Myron Tagovailoa on the staff too as a Polynesian. Like it is important to kind of have like that kind of connection with people, because when specifically at Notre Dame, maybe at other schools it's not as big of a thing, but I think there's so much of a culture shock going to Notre Dame and South Bend, Indiana for a lot of these kids, because they're recruiting from all over the country. They're bringing kids from Hawaii, they're bringing kids from Florida, they're bringing kids from California, from all over the place, that it is harder for them to choose Notre Dame when they say like choose hard. That's part of what it is.
Yeah.
So I think it does. No one, I haven't seen it, at least, not that I can recall, that people have talked about it directly. I'm sure it has a positive impact.
Representation matters,
Yep.
it just does. And think of it for your own situation, right? You go somewhere and there are like people there, whether it's a Korean, right, or whether it's an African American coach or African American GM or an African American D-line coach or safeties coach or whatever it might be, right? Like it matters to people to the extent it matters. We have no idea. No one's saying like, oh, Marcus Freeman's black, so I'm going to go there. No, but it helps, right? It matters,
Yeah.
and just
It's a positive.
Yeah, it's a positive thing. It's not a negative thing, but it's not determinative. It's not it's not why. It's kind of like I mean, it's like a totally different thing, but people always talk about like, oh, no recruit ever said they wanted to go to Notre Dame because of the facilities or because of the Goog or whatever. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't hurt to have like top of the line facilities, right? Like,
Yeah,
it helps, but even though no one will state it as the reason, like,
you don't want it to be on the cons list,
right. So, like, have representation in your university. It's a good thing, right? It's not a bad thing. Loyal stepson, barring some miraculous move into the lineup, I presume we see an offensive line that looks like this: left tackle Knapp, left guard Strouth, center Craig, right guard Charles Jagusa, right tackle Emil Wagner. How much improvement should we expect in run blocking and pass blocking for this year? What player could be the weak link in the chain?
I don't really see like a guy that I would pick out as a weak link in the chain. So,
Agree.
and also too, like, not to, I know he's not asking it for that, but like, I kind of feel like would be a crappy way to do it, of being like, I think this guy's the worst guy out of the group or something like that. So, and I definitely wouldn't do that. But I really don't see a guy that I don't think can be like, the floor is like a quality starter. And obviously Marcus Freeman talked about the ceiling as being so high. And I think, sorry.
Well, would you agree that all of these players you could see playing in the NFL?
Yes.
Then there isn't a weak link. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It'd be one thing if you had four NFL caliber players and one who was obviously not, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's good.
I think that's totally fair. And then I think too that because I think if you look at, say, like well, whatever, I don't want to single guys out, but there have been guys that have started that you knew that these guys weren't going to play in the league.
Yeah.
It didn't really have a shot at it. And I think all of these guys have a shot at it. Which I don't think Notre Dame, as good as the offensive lines have been, like if you look at like all of the lines, certainly, like, I think some of those later lines, guys played in the league, like they weren't drafted, but I think all these guys have a shot to be drafted, and some of them like really high. So I think that's, a good sign. But how much improvement should we expect? I think you should expect like significant improvement, because it's one, they're way more experienced than they were last year coming into it. Like everybody knows about like the whole, like they only had 6 career starts going into it. Well, now they're a lot more experienced than that. The other thing is they still like haven't played enough to the point that you think like these guys are anywhere close to their ceiling. So, saying what Freeman said again about how, Wagner and Strouth are like closer to their ceilings because they played more, but they're still not really close to what they're going to be. So I think you should expect like just pretty big improvement all around. And frankly, if it doesn't happen, it should be viewed as like an extreme disappointment. But I doubt that it's going to happen that way. But really, there should be high expectations.
Yeah. I think for me, I keep harping on the size thing. I just think, especially with Anthony Knapp, Jug saw getting like another off season where it's like he gets to actually get in shape. I think Wagner, again, I think he can make another jump physically, not like a huge one, but like he can get bigger and stronger. And Schroff too, like as these guys get older and older, right, then become men. I just think there were so many times last year where Notre Dame was just small. They were too, as compared to the defense. And look, these were in games that they won, right? But like it obviously makes it very difficult when you're the smaller team, especially on the lines. Like Matt was talking about how when he goes to Texas A&M and he's like, man, these Texas A&M these D linemen are they're massive. And you got little Anthony Knapp out there, right? And so I just think evening that playing field should help him immensely, right? And I think that's for all of them, So again, I harp on that for a reason. I think it's going to make a big, big difference for their performance in 2025. STG Brad 21. Do you foresee a quote unquote Super Bowl hangover affecting the team in 2025? So made it to the championship game, won 3 playoff games. Do you see kind of a letdown season for we see that a lot, the Super Bowl loser specifically, a lot of the time the next year they don't do as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of happened for Notre Dame in 2013. I would say that was kind of an example of that, right? After the 2012 season, I think there were a lot of guys that were kind of like, pretty high on themselves, and they didn't like maybe put in the work that they needed to for that next year. And it showed. And some guys weren't as good as they were. Yeah. So I think it's possible, but I don't foresee it. I don't think that's where Notre Dame is at with the program and with the players that are there. And I think too that no one else is kind of looking for like that quick fix kind of thing. I think there's a reason why Marcus Freeman has just kind of like stressed, evolving and like enhancing, and then also like get better every day. And that has been a constant theme. So I think they've taken the right approach to it, where I don't see that it's going to come back and bite them.
Yeah, it's possible. You have to acknowledge the possibility of it. Marcus Freeman is I think has been very cognizant of that. Like he's taken steps to avoid it. You'd like to think not. You'd like to think not, especially also because you have so many young guys ascending. Guys who are like going into full-time roles now. And it's just like they're getting older. I don't remember any of these teams returning a talent like Jeremiah Love. You just didn't. The linebackers are usually depleted in that case, and they're not in this situation. You have an up-and-comer like Bryce Young, and Boubacar is coming back. It's hard to see it. It's possible. You have to acknowledge it's possible, but it just doesn't feel like it to me. Guys hanging on laurels and that sort of thing. It just doesn't feel that way. Drew Brennan 77. We have heard a lot about the job that Mike Martin has been doing as GM. Have not heard much about Jordan Blake. Anything you can share about what the early returns have been on him, the new role with Notre Dame? He's the recruiting coordinator. Jordan Blake. Anything on him?
I mean, look at the results.
Yeah. It's like not him specifically, but he's the guy in charge of recruiting right now. And
I mean, he's a guy who, had to come in and like create relationships and like, get connected with guys like right away, and be a big part of that. And I mean, they're landing guys. So I think that is obviously, that's probably his number one mandate is like, hey, we got to get these guys, like, because he's a bigger part of the recruiting aspect than Mike Martin is. So that's a big part of his role. And right now they're getting results. Right. And I think it's still too early to say like, oh man, this guy's elite and whatever and all that. Like, well, let's just kind of let it play out, and let's let it play out over like the course of the full year before we really start saying anything. But I have a feeling we'll probably hear a lot more about him and learn a lot more about him over the course of like the next few months when they get in official visits and all that.
Yeah. Jordan Blake, like flying under the radar. What a concept.
Well, yeah. And he's not, yeah, he's not, whatever. No comment.
If he if he wanted to make it known what his role was in all of these recruitments and stuff, he could. He chooses not to. He's just doing his work, right? And I think it's notable that the work is getting done and specific credit isn't being given. I want to give credit to VSR Media for being the best in the business, and I'm going to do that right now. VSR Media, of course, is founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshot, senior, and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. We'll go to our next question from Vamos. Irish. This is from Oscar. It's early July and grilling season is in full swing. You are Micah Gilbert, and you just got a text from both CJ and Kenny at the same time. Micah, I'm hosting all the wide receivers out here in my city next week for a mini camp. Can I count on you to come to my camp and grill? Which quarterback are you choosing? Going to CJ in the shadow of Ann Arbor, full of delicious Michigan cherries and bratwurst galore? Or are you heading to the suburbs of Nashville to see Kenny with barbecue and music at your door? Consider the quarterback relationship building potential, the vibes, the food available, and bonus points on who the quarterback might bring in to help coach the clinic, a la Phillip Rivers last year.
This is a true Vamos Irish, man. What a gem. What a great
Legend.
question.
Absolutely. Legend.
I mean, I will say, Ann Arbor, yes, people hate Michigan. I get it. Ann Arbor is a nice town.
It is a nice town.
It is a nice town. Minus all the Michigan stuff. It's a pretty cool town. Good food. So that's a thing. In saying that, I would choose Nashville. I've never been to Nashville. Always wanted to go to Nashville. Always want to have an authentic Nashville hot chicken sandwich there. Eat some good barbecue.
Hang out with Bridget.
Hang out with Bridget. Definitely. I can say I'm not a country music fan. I'll skip on that. I'm gonna guess Kenny's not, blasting country at the workout. Just maybe I'm wrong. I'm just gonna guess he's not, hey, maybe he is. I don't know. And can't be saying that all of a sudden because CJ's in Ann Arbor, he's not got good tunes there too. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some like nice little indie rock bands from Ann Arbor or something. I mean, personally, just whatever. I would not pick off like whatever the quarterback relationship building. I couldn't choose that part of it. Just off of base of like the food and the vibes of the city and where I'd want to visit. Nashville, it is for me.
It's Nashville. Listen, you can't choose Ann Arbor in this situation just because Nashville. The problem is like if you're worried about actually becoming a good football player, because you have to also consider like you go to Nashville, all you're going to run into is like bachelorette parties everywhere, and that's going to be like it could be distracting, right? Like just that whole scene. It's almost like Nashville is for like the team building, and Ann Arbor is like for the work. Like that's why you got to double up. I said it before. You got to go to two places And you got to get both quarterback cohorts at different spots. You go to Ann Arbor up here, you go to Nashville down here. You have a party with that, like make Nashville second, so that's like a kick, ending the summer workouts. Go to Nashville and have a party. Ann Arbor, you do most of the work. Like I said, Ann Arbor is great. It's fine, right? Whatever. I think Brendan lives there. Brendan McElhinney, 1 foot down. Like he lives there. He speaks highly of it. I think you're working in Ann Arbor, you're partying in Nashville. I think that's the only way to go. Who we get? Look, if you go to Ann Arbor, you might get Tom Brady rolling through, right? Which, listen, do we want that? I don't know if we want that. He seems like a nice fellow, but he's a Michigan, and we don't, he's a Michigan. You go down to Tennessee with Nashville, maybe you run into Cam Ward. Maybe he's walking around. Maybe you couldn't take some reps from Cam Ward. You just never know, so these are the types of things that you need to figure out. What's it? The quarterback last year? He went to Kentucky. What's the first round pick? What's his name?
Will Levis.
Will Levis. I think.
Putting that nail in the coffee. Nah.
No, but he was. I think he's an ESQ guy. I think he's an ESQ guy, so you might be able to hang out with Will Levis as well.
Well, that's true.
So we're monitoring. All right, Duke Sinatra. Earlier in the spring, we heard that Ash had the defense practicing more zone and was experimenting with a little more wide nine. Do you think either of these changes will have a meaningful effect on the 25 defense? Did you notice any other defensive changes in limited viewing the media was allowed?
I don't know why you put quotations around changes, but anyways, I just found that funny. I do think they will have, like some meaningful effect, because I think when you're doing you're being a little bit more diverse with coverages and stuff too. It can make an impact, right? And I think you're presenting stuff, especially early on, that, if Texas A&M, when they're watching film, they're not going to be watching everything that, you're going to show,
right?
Based on what, I guess they can go watch some old Chris Ash film from before, but I don't know how deep they're going to dive into that. So I think it could have a big effect in that way. I also think too, I'm a proponent of the wide nine and stuff if they did it, but I don't know how much they actually did. I didn't really see wide nine with them doing a lot of that. And I think it was less of wide nine and more of them just kind of expanding out, from a true 7 tech to just a little bit further out. So that it wasn't quite wide nine. So, I don't know. It'll be I think it'll be different for different guys. What kind of impact that will make. Did not notice a lot of major defensive changes because they weren't going to show us.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to show too much. We'll say that they did do this. And I mentioned in the practice report, then too, they did run, some 5 down, 5 defensive linemen grouping where they had an extra defense tackle. It wasn't a short yardage thing. They were just adding it in for something. And I don't know if that was hey, they're working on it because one of the teams they're playing this year is going to be a true heavier 12 13 formation team that they want to do that sometimes or whatever. But yeah, where they were running a bear front, which is nose 2-3 techs, whatever, and then 2 edges.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that I noticed that was a little bit different than what we've seen from Notre Dame this past year. But it's not we haven't seen that before, just not that specifically.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out during the year. It'll be a fun thing for us to track and just what's different about them, right? And I think an advantage you have going with Texas A&M is you're going to show them looks that they haven't seen, previously, having played them last year. So that'll be interesting to monitor throughout the year. Next question: the Salty Jazz 14. We hear a lot about how Notre Dame's best are quiet. Jeremiah Love, Billy Schroff, soft-spoken guys. Who are the most outspoken players on the team who might step into leadership roles outside of Bowen?
Outspoken, like I don't even know if what the what the best way to
who's a big talker?
yeah,
Who's
like I mean Snead is a big talker. Jason Anye, didn't hear him as much.
He was,
there.
and it's hard to know what it would be like when he comes.
Yeah,
to
because obviously it's a little bit of like him kind of reintroducing himself into the program, but he was a big talker before, so that was the thing. Those are two guys who are very. Snead talks a lot. You know, and that's a thing. But I think sometimes too, like sometimes you don't even realize how much some guys talk because they're not doing it as much in practice as they do in the games. Like, I think a lot of Notre Dame fans might be surprised that like JD Bertrand and Maris Liafa were like maybe the biggest trash talkers on the team. Like people think of like JD Bertrand, he's like a leader and he's like this guy who's just like a straight. It's like, no, the guy was like, he was getting after guys like a lot, you know, verbally. So which I think is cool. Like, I mean, I think that's part of like, you know, it's part of his like personality and you got to let it shine. Right. So, to be honest, I don't know if there's like too many other guys that I think like really stand out. Donnie Heinisch, you know, he'll talk.
I think Schuler. I feel like Schuler's a
talker.
Guy who'll say something. I mean, Christian Gray.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say like the step into leadership roles, it's not necessarily being like who's outspoken and who's talking. Cause I think like that is like a different, those are different vibes. Those are different vibes in a lot of way. Yeah. And I think
I just feel like a guy like Wagner. Like, I don't know how much he talks, but he just seems to carry a presence.
Everything I heard from him this spring was like, I think Wagner's going to be a captain.
Yeah.
Just the way that he talked about, first of all, other players of the team, the way that, you know, there's that quote that Gregory Patrick, when he talked to Christian McCollum about like his experience before he committed, and he talked about how like, you know, Emil Wagner was like telling him about Joe Rudolph, and the way that he explained how Joe Rudolph was so hard on them, but like they were more than fine with him because they know how much he cared about them. And it's just one of those things where it's like, there's like a level of like maturity that comes with that really kind of, I think, you know, when people can talk about that kind of stuff too, that's like what leaders do.
Yeah.
And so I think like Wagner, Jane Greathouse, he's a guy that, I mean, really, I think kind of stepped into like being a leader because he's like he's like the vet. Like some guys call him Unk. He's a junior, but they call him Unk because he's just been around and playing for so long. So, I think, you know, those are guys I would watch out for potential captains.
Yeah. Okay. Irish Nut. Does offer to Melvin Jr. mean Osborne is going to Michigan and we don't sit as good as we thought with the other guys?
No, it doesn't mean anything to do with that. It's just that, honestly, it's Notre Dame just being way more proactive with guys and being like, this guy's a good player. We're going to offer him. Because they're going to take two backs, one. So that's important. The other thing is like, nothing is certain. So why aren't you just developing relationships and trying to find greater guys? Because I think about like Mason Graham, who, I mean, I read this and I was like, oh my gosh, I just wanted to make me puke. Mason Graham, obviously, top 5 overall pick in the draft, stud at Michigan, went to Servite. He was a guy who flew under the radar as a prospect, was committed to Boise State, had mostly group of 5 offers. Michigan got in after they offered him after seeing like the first few games of his senior film. And then he flipped to Michigan. And some other teams try to get in late. He had a monster senior year. COVID played a part of like him not getting as much, looks as possible. He said his favorite growing up, I was reading old articles on him. His favorite growing up was Notre Dame because, Equinemius St. Brown was Servite, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
the whole
so there were guys who went to Servite and it was like, oh, they went to Notre Dame, and it was like, that's why he had a connection with Notre Dame, and Notre Dame didn't offer him or whatever. I mean, some of it is like, you can't blame them totally because it was like such a weird year.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. But I just want to say it is rather hilarious that in that year, which was a weird year, so I'll admit it, like Mike Elston didn't offer him. Probably didn't even give him a second look. And then yet went to Michigan and ended up getting to coach him and gets a credit for this guy that he didn't think was good enough to offer, or like didn't even notice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the way it can work sometimes, obviously. And it worked out pretty well for Mike Elston, who is a good coach. I wouldn't say he's the best recruiter. But that was like one of those things where you're looking at it and you're like, man, even if you're happy with the thing, what's the harm in offering that guy? And it turns out that he ends up being a friggin' top 5 pick and was absolutely dominant player. And
kicked the crap out of Ohio State specifically.
Just throw him into this game in the national championship game and tell me that if you were going to say one player that you were like, man, this guy might actually could swing a game their way, might have been it, because you know what? He did swing the game their way against them earlier. So,
yeah.
But that's crude. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's not good. We don't like that. All right. JP Bearcat, last question. JP Bearcat 22. Since the Kentucky Derby is this Saturday, who do you think is the fastest player in each position group? 100-meter dash. Also, winning your position group is just the prelims. All the winners race again. How does the podium look for the finals? First, second, third. Okay, quarterback. Who's the fastest quarterback?
Minchie.
Is there any chance that Hebert has juice there? I was thinking.
I don't think in 100. No.
Okay.
Maybe in a 40 you got a shot. And no, I don't think in 100.
Okay. Running back. I mean, Jeremiah Love. Although I have to say, like, that's tough for Jadarian Price because he's winning.
I mean, he's pretty. They should be in the finals, probably. All of those guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have to go with Love.
I mean, he's like a true sprinter. Like he's got like a 10-500. That's legit. Tight end. I think Raritan,
but if we're counting because he's going to be on the team in the summer, James Flanagan, I believe, is like a pretty fast, like he's a good track guy. And because I think he's lighter than him right now,
interesting,
he would probably be the guy that probably would win that in 100.
All right. I'm going to check this out. Let's see. Wide receiver.
This is a tough one.
It is.
I think that it's really tough, actually. Like, probably Cam Williams, but maybe Antavius Richardson. Will Pauling ran a sub 4.40. So I don't know about in the 100, but you run a sub 4.40. That's moving, man. I wouldn't say Faison, but I mean, he's pretty fast, but I wouldn't say that he's there. KK Smith's pretty fast, but I think I'll go with Richardson, but I don't know. What do you, you're the track guy. I'll whoever you choose.
I think I have to do Richardson. I think because I've seen him run too. And like, he's an efficient runner. He's not like an ugly, gross runner. I think it might be him. Cam, that's tough. I think it's Richardson. I do. He's got those strides. I think that really helps. Update on the James Flanagan situation. He's got an 11:44 PR. I'm going to go ahead and say that he's the fastest one in the room. I don't know that Eli Raridan's running 11:4. 11:4 is fast, especially for his size.
A tight end. That is real fast.
Yeah. That's fast. So, all right, I'll say Flanagan on that. All right, O-line. I'll say who's fastest on the O-line? Wagner.
I'm gonna say probably Wagner, but Joe Otting had he was a big time track guy. I know some of it was throws and stuff too.
Yeah.
But he is quick. So I don't know. Maybe Joe Otting would win the 40. Maybe it's different because he doesn't have the stride. I don't know. But he's not short. He's like 6'4" or whatever. So I just look up Joe Otting to see what he runs in. We probably shouldn't be wasting time looking up these guys, but I do think that he would be my other choice there.
He doesn't have anything in terms of no.
Let's just go with Wagner. Well, anyways, this guy's neither of them are making it in the top 3 in the final here.
He is a standout shot putter. So he won't have anything. I think for D-line, I think we'll just go Bryce Young and move on with
Bryce Young. Yes.
Because he's got
hands down.
He's got legit track time.
Hands down.
Linebacker. Sneed. Okay, let's go. Sneed, Osbury, Bowen, KVA. Who am I forgetting here? I guess Madden Faramo, Preston Zinter,
Bodie Cahoon.
Bodie Cahoon. I think he was one. Who do you say?
Man, I'm gonna go Bodie Cahoon.
I'm gonna see here. Hold on. He should. So these guys should have the times. Like if they ran track, they should come up. He's a good athlete, man. He really is. Let me see. State track and field. It doesn't come up.
I mean, I think you could, if you are, you could argue any of those guys, and I would say, like, yeah, they're whatever. Like, I would be fine with either of them. I think to me, it's between Cahoon and Sneed.
Agree. I'm gonna go Cahoon just because.
Yeah, let's just
to highlight how good of an athlete he is. So let's go Cahoon there. Let's see. Safety.
I mean, we know Luke Tolich.
It might be Tolich because he's got like a 10-700. He's legit track guy.
I think it's him, but if I didn't know that, I would have said Tay Johnson. But he has those strides that just. So I will go Tolich. We'll go Tolich because we know that we know his time.
Yeah,
we know his time.
100-meter 10.72. I no one is beating that. I'm sorry, no one. And here's the other part. With Luke Tolich. Okay, I might have to take him second in the whole thing. He's got. So this is how you know, right? And I told you before about evaluating track guys. Okay, as a sophomore, 10.83. As a junior, 10.90. As a sophomore, sophomore 10.83. Junior 10.90. Senior 10.72. 22.3, 22.07, 21.85. He might be second fastest on the team, legitimate. Like those are very, very good times.
I mean, he's obviously a lot bigger now than he was.
Yeah, but like 6'3" guy, like that's that's legit, man. That's a good athlete. All right. Corner. It's hard to go against Leonard Moore just because of like the chase down stuff. Like he's very fast. I'm gonna go Leonard Moore. I know Carson Hobbs ran track, but I just never saw that kind of juice. I'm just trying to think. I don't think
Carson Hobbs was talking like he's the fastest this spring. He was talking like
that. Honestly, makes me think he's not.
I know.
The talkers.
Honestly, it is true. It is true. The guys who talk the most are the guys who are like, yeah, you're probably third. Like it's just that is true. I'll go with Leonard Moore as well. And I believe too, he had that like the GPS was ridiculous on that one chase down that he had too, right? So
yeah, at some point you're just, I got 11-2 100 meters for Hobbs. Yeah, I'm out on that. That's a no-go for me. That's a no-go. He's not faster than Leonard Morris. Okay. And that's it. All right. So the finalists, I think the finalists are Leonard Moore. I'm gonna say, which wide receiver are we choosing here?
We Antavius Richardson.
Right? Okay, so Jeremiah Love, Antavius Richardson, and Luke Tolich. I'm going Love, Richardson, Tolich. I feel like Antavius Richardson has like a really good 100 time.
He does have a really good. He has a blazing.
Let's see.
I believe he's like a. I want to say he's like a 10-4, 10-5.
I see 1090 here.
Okay, I don't think. Hold on, I gotta look.
2024. Oh no. 2024 1068. I gotta take. Okay, he's second. All right, I go Love.
Yeah, we'll go Love Richardson.
I think that's the way to go. Love track and field talk. Love having this conversation. All right.
Great
those
question.
Are all the questions.
Great question, Jake.
Great question. I had fun with that. That'll do it for the show today. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. So whenever it is, we are going live. Power Hour will be back on Monday with Mike and Jamie. And then we'll do Tuesday, Thursday shows from there on. So have a good rest of your day. Have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.